Are you interested in going to a hunted pre-release event? Then you're going to want to know the basics of the format, how each hero works, and how to decide on which hero to play and, what cards they're looking to put in their decks. My name's Pheano, and I'm going to be going over all of this and more in this video. Stick around to the end, though. You're going to want to hear some of the bonus tips that I have on how to find some edges in the format and win more games. Before getting into the heroes, we're going to need to explain the two tokens that are integral to understanding how this set operates. The first is marked. All three heroes care about this token. Simply put, there are effects on cards in the set that will mark a player. When they are marked, they will have this token under their control. It does nothing on its own, but other cards and effects in the set will reference it. Once a marked player is hit, they will no longer be marked, and you will remove the token from the board. The other is Fealty. Both Draconic heroes care about this token. As an instant, you can destroy the Fealty token, so the next card that you play gains the Draconic talent. Also, at the beginning of its controller's end phase, destroy it unless you have created another Fealty token or played a Draconic card this turn. Now that we understand these, let's jump into explaining the heroes and the weapons in the set. First up, we have Syndra. She is a Royal Draconic Ninja. Whenever you hit a marked hero, you'll create a Fealty token. And once per turn as an instant, you can pay 3 resources to equip 2 Draconic daggers from your graveyard. But this costs 1 less to activate for each Draconic chainlink you control. Your dagger is the Kunai of Retribution. They are Draconic Ninja daggers that are one-handed and have 1 power. Once per turn as an action, you can pay 1 to attack with them, and it has go again. But it will be destroyed when the combat chain closes. Next, we have Fang, who is a Royal Draconic Warrior. Just like Syndra, whenever Fang hits a marked hero, you will create a Fealty token. And if you control 3 or more Fealty tokens, your dagger attacks will cost 1 less to activate. Your dagger of choice will be the Obsidian Firevein, a one-handed Draconic Warrior dagger with 1 power. Once per turn, you can pay 1 to attack with it, and if you played a Draconic card this chainlink, it gets 1 power and go again. An important distinction is that a Draconic card needs to be played this chainlink, not this combat chain, meaning it has to be played on the same chainlink as the dagger attack. Instance and attack reactions will be the cards of choice to enable this. Last, we have Arachne, the Chaos Assassin. Arachne has 7 heroes in 1, so bear with me here. On the base form of Arachne, your stealth attacks that are attacking marked heroes will get +1, and if it hits, will gain go again. Stealth is a keyword that you're going to find on cards. Similarly to marked, it doesn't intrinsically do anything, but other cards will reference it. As for the rest of what Arachne does, at the beginning of your end phase, if your opponent is marked, you will become a random agent of chaos. There are 6 agents of chaos, and they are all demi-heroes that you will place on top of your hero when you become them. Your life total won't change when this happens, and I recommend just, rolling a d6 to randomly pick which one you're going to become. To not spend too much time explaining what each one of them does, I'm going to leave all 6 demi-heroes up on the screen right now, and you can pause to read them if you want. Each one is powerful in a different way, so this should be something that you're trying to take advantage of. You will only become these demi-heroes temporarily, though, because at the beginning of your end phase, they will return to the Brood, and you will turn back into Arachne Web of Deceit. Arachne has 2 weapons. The first is the one that you will start the game with, Mark of the Huntsman. This is a one-handed assassin dagger with 1 power. Once per turn as an action, you can pay 2 to attack with it, and it has go again. When it hits a hero, you can destroy it to mark them, and if it's attacking a marked hero, it actually gets +1 power. The other weapon, I honestly have no idea how to pronounce, so here's my best attempt at it. Graphene Silicura? I have no idea. It's a one-handed assassin dagger with 1 power. But it also has stealth, so cards that reference stealth will interact with this. Once per turn as an action, you can pay 1 to attack with it, and if it attacks a marked hero, it gets go again. You can't start the game with this one, though, because it has the token subtyping on the card, not to be confused with the token rarity at the bottom of the card. But there are some ways in the set, such as one of the demi-heroes, that will let you equip it if you have an open weapon zone. Now that we understand the heroes of the set, let's dive into what you're going to be doing at the pre-release. At the pre-release, you're going to get 8 packs of the Hunted. You will be making a 30 card deck out of these cards. The normal playset rules that are in Constructed don't apply here, so if you open more than 3 of a card and you want to play them, add as many as you want to your deck. Similarly, the legendary keyword on cards does not apply in Limited, so if you open more than 1 of these, congratulations, your deck is very good. Each pack contains 14 cards plus 2 cards at the back of the pack that are either a token or a rare expansion slot card. Anything you open in the expansion slot cannot be used in your deck. Consider it LSS's gift to you. Usually when I'm opening my packs, I start by setting aside the back cards in every pack as I'm opening them, just so I don't get confused later. In addition to this, you're going to get a special promo pack with some promos and some extra tokens. Feel free to use the promo weapons that you get in this. Now that we've opened all of our packs and either shown off the cool legendary that we opened or are mauling because we didn't get anything, we need to start sorting our cards. I start by making 10 piles. 1 for Ninja, 1 for Draconic Ninja, 1 for Warrior, 1 for Draconic Warrior. Now you can combine the Warrior and Draconic Warrior and the Ninja and Draconic Ninja ones if you want. It really depends on how you're feeling. I'll explain why that can matter later. 1 for Assassin, 1 for Assassin Ninja, 1 for Assassin Warrior, 1 for Draconic, 1 for Generic, and 1 for Equipment. Now, I might want to separate out the Draconic from the not Draconic class cards because the Draconic class cards are typically reasons to go into a specific hero. So if I have a quantity of those, that's going to be something important to note later. But that's up to you if you want to sort those out. Now, once we finish sorting, we're going to need to decide what to play. A good starting point is seeing which class pile is the biggest. But let's go a little bit deeper on how to make an informed choice. After sorting everything in piles, I'll first see how many blues I have for each class. If I don't think I have enough blues to have a functioning deck, I'm gonna set that pile aside and just stop looking at it. I would say a good number of pitch cards in this set would be 10 to 12 for each hero. Then I'm gonna check to see if I have any cards that would pull me into a specific hero. For Syndra, I'm looking for plenty of draconic attacks as well as powerful finishers, such as the Art of Dragons and Dragon Power. These are my payoffs for creating Fealty tokens. As you notice, she doesn't directly interact with a Fealty token on her hero like Fang does. This is why you're making them so that way later on you can get extra value out of these cards. Ideally, I would also like at least one way to flick my kunai directly at my opponent. Flicking is a shorthand for a card that we had in a previous set called Flick Knives. These are effects that will let you have one of your daggers deal damage directly to your opponent and typically destroy it afterwards. Beyond the value of unblockable damage, this has an added benefit of putting a kunai that is on the combat chain into the graveyard without breaking the combat chain, so you can get it back with your hero power while still retaining the cost reduction of your hero power from the draconic chain link that your kunai created earlier. If you do end up with some ways to flick your kunai, Poison Blade is another major reason you might consider going into Syndra. You can consume a Fealty token to make this draconic, then attack with 2 kunai, then flick both of them at your opponent if you have cards that will do that, then activate your hero power, returning both kunai, and attack with them again. That's a lot of damage. In Fang, I'm looking for enough dagger enablers for my deck to function. These are either draconic attack reactions or draconic instants. The instants in particular can be very good to trick your opponent by sidestepping their blocks, as Brian put it on stream. For example, if I attack with a naked 1 with multiple cards in my hand, you might feel inclined to block that dagger as it's obvious I have something to play here. So when you play an instant, you make your opponent waste block value on your first dagger sometimes. I would say 8 to 10 is the minimum I would consider for dagger enablers, but more would be ideal. And then after that, I'm just looking to fill out the rest of my deck with ways to mark my opponent, or as we call it, front pumps. These are cards that are going to be played before you attack with your dagger that will increase its power. Now, unlike the previous 2 heroes, where I'm more so looking for like a quantity of good cards, for Arachne, I'm looking for some more specific cards. I really either want Orb Weaver Spinneret or Whittle from Bone to be able to equip Graphene Silicera without having to rely on transforming into Arachne Orb Weaver. And I'll explain why this is important later. Beyond that, I'm looking to see if I have attack reactions so I can force through my on-hits or close the game out once my opponent gets low. They are important too because they don't use your action point, letting you use more of your cards on offense when needed. Being able to enable your hero transformation is a huge part of your gameplay loop, so if you don't have the tools to do that, you're going to have a mopey deck, so we're really looking for ways to mark our opponent or ways to force through the marking of our opponent, like the attack reaction. One of the most important aspects of this format, after understanding the basics of how each hero works, is how each of them is trying to win the game. Knowing that will let you navigate the game towards your endgame or prevent your opponent from reaching theirs first. Typically, the player to reach their endgame first is the one that will win the game. In the case of Syndra, she is the most honest and face-up hero of the set. By that, I mean there's typically very little hidden information on her turns. It's all face-up damage on the table. There's no trickery going on. I found the key for her to win is by finding ways in the early to mid game to have at least one above rate turn, which usually involves some of her power cards that I mentioned earlier, like Dragon Power. Beyond that, you're looking to get chip damage through with inefficient to block damage like your daggers, or cards that are hitting breakpoints of 4. Once you've gotten enough chip damage, you can Kodachi lock your opponent with your kunai, or close the game by flicking your kunai at them if you have any of those cards left. Now, if you don't know what a Kodachi lock is, that's when you attack with really cheap and efficient weapons that typically present very small amounts of damage, like 1 damage, but your opponent is so low they have to give you a full card to block that anyways, and there's just no real coming back from that when they have to give you a full card on each dagger. You can also win the game by getting your opponent low enough that your hand does more damage to them than they're able to block, but that typically only works if they're ignorantly trading damage with you when they shouldn't be. Like not blocking your previous round and going really low so they can throw damage back at you, but they can't threaten lethal this turn, so you threaten lethal back. I would not expect people to be doing that, but that can be a way that you win games. Fang's endgame is pretty simple. You have attack reactions. Get your opponent low enough that they have to overblock your daggers every turn or they will die. And by doing so, they'll just end up fatiguing. And at some point, they just have to block and hope you don't have it, and then you just kill them with a reaction. Arachne combines a lot of what the other two heroes are trying to do. You can kill them with surprise reaction damage, or you have your own version of a Kodachi lock. The first step is you're going to have at least 1 graphene in play. Then you need to get your opponent to 1 or 2 life and mark them. Now, we're able to go 2 go again off of a single blue every turn. The graphene will get +1 from your hero power, and Mark of the Huntsman will get +1 from itself, Kodachi locking them with way more steps. You also have the extra win condition of fatigue, since almost all of your cards block for 3, and your opponent can get stuck blocking for multiple rounds burning through their deck. Now lastly, here are some tips and tricks on how to win some more games and find some edges in the format. Continuing my thought from the previous point, be the first to put your opponent in the grinder. You really want to be the first one to get your opponent into those endgame states where they're having to make really tough blocking decisions and playing smaller hands, letting you not have to block as much and play bigger hands. If you're the first one able to do that, you're going to be able to close games very easily. When possible, look to block what I call is face-up damage. This is your opponent attacks and you know that at a minimum it's coming in for this amount of blockable damage. So for example, your opponent plays one of the front pumps on their dagger and now the dagger's coming in for 5. Well, you know I can put a card in front of this for 3 and I'm guaranteed to block 3 damage. Whereas if your opponent just attacks for 1 with cards in hand, I don't know if putting a card in front of this for 3 is going to get the full block value out of it. Because of the nature of hidden information and reaction damage in this set, finding spots where like I know exactly how much damage is on the table right now, so I'm just going to put cards in front of cards so that way I can elongate the game a little bit more, can be beneficial. Find extra advantages on turn 0 of the game. Now turn 0 refers to the very first turn of the game. Now, if you're the player going first, maybe look to get some leak damage on your opponent through some of the inefficient to block damage, either through your small chip damage of your kunais or reaction damage. Find some way to get like a little bit of an extra edge going first, because typically going second is the advantaged player in the format. So you need to make up for that lost ground a little bit somehow. This could also be by just marking them. If you're able to go second and mark your opponent on the first turn of the game before you've even taken your first turn, that is a massive advantage. And this can be done by discarding one of the cards that lets you mark your opponent as an instant, or by using the defense reactions that mark. Look to get some bonus value out of your equipment. For example, the leapfrog equipment can actually jump between chain links if they don't break the combat chain and use a reaction on a later chain link. This lets you block with it more than once on a turn. Or you can use the guardwell to block for 1 at some point to cover up like an on hit or something, like your opponent comes in with the 0 for 4 that on hit marks. Maybe you don't want to get marked, so you cover that up with a card from hand and the guardwell. Now it has a -1 counter, so it technically blocks for 0. But then the next time they attack with a weapon, you put this in front, it goes from 0 back to 1, so you're able to still get your 2 defense out of it, but you're spreading it out over 2 blocks instead of 1. If you are looking to go to the pre-release but don't know how, go to fabtcg.com, scroll down a little bit, click on locators, and then find an event. Then you can just click on this right here, the pre-release tab, and it will auto-fill the information at the bottom for pre-release. Type in your address here, and you'll be able to find pre-releases near you. I'll also have a link in the description that will direct you right to this. Big shout out to Bartosz and Naib who helped me make this video. And if you got some value out of this, you might want to check out this video over here where Cody William talks about how you can get early edges in limited formats. Of course, subscribe and check out the Patreon if you got value out of this. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you.